Okay, so I don't know if this Nik Kershaw song is familiar to you, but Roses is definitely worth a review, and that's not only since the lyrics written back in the 80s could hardly be more up to date. But putting text aside, I'm here for the music stuff, and oh my, we are going to have fun here. As I pointed out in my analysis of The Riddle, the complexity of Nik Kershaw's harmonic language is not due to his chords being super complex. He rather has this strange but phenomenal habit sticking together progressions of simple root chords that don't necessarily belong to the same key but work together anyway. This is another brilliant example for how he can jump from key to key in very little time while the listeners notice just that as a kind of characteristic Nik Kershaw sonority. Yes, I am talking about Nik Kershaw like all of us listen to his songs for the first time, which I am quite sure most of us don't. You may argue that I talk like a classical music theory nerd, exaggerating the effect of every modal mixture-based chord progression, but in my personal experience, treating these phenomena in this detailed way is the best method to understand on a cognitive level what's going on, and therefore even be able to reproduce such kinds of chord progressions, if you wish.
Make another just the same, more or less.
The melody we are presented in the first verse is harmonized with a bunch of standard chords, all related to the key of G minor. It's actually a pretty haunting melody if you listen to it alone, since the phrases in combination with the chords tend to not release the motion tension until its very end. But the fun part starts in the transition from the verse to the chorus.
Just come from a meeting and we're sure you'd like to know.
Here we jump from our tonic G minor to F minor, which is a chord that doesn't fit into our key at all. Since we already heard a complete verse with chords based on G minor, this can catch us rather off guard. The only thing similar that would fit into G minor would be an F major chord. But we are presented its minor variant. So in the first moment, we perceive the melody note, the now minor third of the chord, as a fraud. Like Nik going up too little with his voice. And here comes the trick with which Nik teaches our ears to accept the F minor as our new tonic. The next chord is D flat major, which directly can be related to the key of F minor as its ordinary 6th scale degree. The moment we hear this, the conflict between the G minor tonality and the F minor chord from before is solved. Solved in this regard, meaning that it may disturb us for the first moment, but it's okay already at the very next. And solving these kinds of conflicts is what Nik now does every time. This pattern of meh in the first moment, fine in the second, is repeated now when the next two chords, F minor and E flat major, are followed by A flat minor. Since we've really arrived in F minor only for 1.5 bars or so, we're even less prepared for leaving it already again. We may want to stick to the key of F minor a little longer, but the only possible third degree is an A flat major chord. The minor variant again sounds of fraud, but this is solved through the same movement to the 6th scale degree of the new key. And this time we believe it a little more anyway, since the last chord from the F minor tonality, the E flat major, can easily be regarded as the 5th scale degree of A flat minor. You may recognize that there's a certain pattern moving up to the minor variant of the 3rd scale degree of a minor scale. Since the achieved key is minor again, of course we can simply copy-paste the thing and move it up in minor third steps. By this, we can create a whole circle of 4 minor third related keys. Any pattern of regular stepping from one degree to another is called a model. Of course, Nik Kershaw hasn't invented this regular stepping down a second, stepping up a third model. If you neglect the accidentals, this model actually goes back quite some time in music history. You can hear it in the Lacrimosa part of Mozart's Requiem, as well as in its most basic form called parallelism, where we only encounter a progression of third-related major and minor chords through secondary dominants. The core of this parallelism is present in such ancient models as the so-called folia. But back to Nik Kershaw, who never tends to repeat a model until the point where the listener can anticipate it. The next time, he goes to the unadulterated third scale degree of A-flat minor with a stepwise bass movement. He then mimics this movement when he goes from C-flat, or rather B major, to D major, again moving to a minor third related key. And just when us listeners try to catch up that this is a slightly different progression because we only have major chords now, Nik again steps out from any regular movement. The chorus is confusing not a little on a rhythmic level alone, because some elements seem to stick to the 4/4 signature, while especially so important parts as the bass decide to do everything exactly one beat later than expected. Also, the new key of E minor is a little blurry, since the tonic clearly appears only on an offbeat and for a shorter amount of time than the rest of the harmony. If you extract the chords, you get a pattern that is again so regular that we can call it a model. In its core, it can be reduced to a bass line descending in half steps that is harmonized with an interchanging series of root and sixth chords. This model, of course, has been around for some time as well.
On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair. Dave is on the road again, wearing different clothes again.
There's also this very neat trick coming back from the E minor key of the chorus to the G minor key of the verse. The end of the chorus leads to a unison G in the bass, which is a reasonable place to go from E minor, because what we assume to be G major is the third scale degree of E minor, of course. Nik leaves us with this unison bass note for one bar, so we have enough time to perceive the change from presumed G major to actual G minor on a different level that doesn't conflict too strong with the E minor chorus anymore. When he moves from the chorus into the interlude, he again plays around with the ambiguity between the variant E minor G major keys. After the transition the first time, we expect the thing to go to the G again, but instead, Nik just puts a third related E flat major chord. Things won't get as crazy as in the Riddle interlude, but there's some ambiguities here and there. The E flat major is reinterpreted as a fourth scale degree when the F sus chord appears.
But it's an awful price we pay, leaving everything.
This constellation seems to push us towards B flat major, but this tonic is evaded through its relative minor variant D flat major,
Leaving everything they say.
which then again is reinterpreted as a dominant towards G flat major.
Yeah, tomorrow, gone today.
Here you have a little moment of resolution, because after that 5-1 progression, G major has established a tonic function. But there's again an increasing amount of tension when Nik moves up to a tone repetition that is a major second above the tonic.
So take me home to the red, red skies.
This major second tension is resolved by the bass moving a half step down, creating a minor third, on which he can build up an F minor chord and start the build up to the chorus again.
Skies and the brown, brown grass and the black, black seas and the...
Releasing a second to a third in such a dramatic way is a systematic also very well known for a long time now. In early music, such as the Baroque era, we'd call the upper note an agens, a perpetrator that creates tension with the patiens, the sufferer, who is forced down a step by this dissonance eventually. So in Roses, we can see that Nik Kershaw justifies his swift key changes not only through the quick addition of chord progressions that put the chord that seems like a fraud at first sight in the context of a new key. He also makes use of concepts like models that through their presence in music history are encoded into our listening habits and put the chord progressions into relatable contexts that catch our ear, especially if they deviate a little from the way we expect them to go. I am not stating that he does all of this on purpose, and all the interviews of him I saw seem to suggest that these kind of ideas come to him rather intuitively or accidentally than in a planned manner. But if that's the case, wouldn't it be one more reason to admire and enjoy his music even more? I hope you enjoyed this one. I will have another Nik Kershaw video soon, so stay tuned if you like and feel free to give your thoughts in the comment section.